You're rocking and rolling, and the live button has been hit. So, how's it going, everybody? I have a really awesome guest today. You're here because you want to take your life to the next level, without a doubt. You want to stay ahead of the pack and execute on the best strategies possible. Well, you'll definitely stay ahead of the game today because with COVID, there's no mystery that a lot of personal development and networking events are now being moved to online. So it's within your best interest to figure out the best way to host your own online event and also network and connect with people online. The most successful people in the world not only attend events, but also host them. Well, today I have a very special guest. Her name is Lisa Schulteis, the founder of ElectraLime Marketing and is a member of several top-level mastermind groups. Her company has helped create big events for Fortune 100 companies, for influencers, and international speakers for the last 11 years. With everything moving to virtual because of COVID, she now helps just very specifically with online events. Well, if I know one thing to be true, it's that now is the best time to start bringing people together for a specific purpose. Whether you're a hairstylist or a dancer or a fitness instructor, or you have your own business, whatever it is, now is a great time to create an online event and start dominating in your space. So by the end of the interview, you get a better understanding of where entrepreneurship is heading in terms of online events. You'll feel like you're ahead of the curve and will have an advantage over most people to take your business to the next level through the use of powerful online events. Thank you for joining us here today, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So really quick question. I really want to know what got you started on your entrepreneurial journey.
It was actually an accident, so I actually don't recommend that anybody starts their business that way. My previous life is actually neuropsychology and healthcare administration. And when my first child was born, I made the decision to stop working to raise my kids. And after number 3 was born, I realized I love my family, I love my kids, but I really needed something back for myself that was just mine. And so I kind of just one day decided, you know what, I'm going to launch this company and I'm going to find people to work with. And, looked at my husband and said, you have to know somebody, right? And I actually started the company almost 11 years ago now doing data entry, $10 an hour for whoever would call me. And it just kept progressing from there and kept building and kept growing. And, people would call and say, hey, do you know how to do this? And I would say, of course I know how to do that, and nod and smile and then go figure it out later. So it really was kind of by accident. And over the last few years, obviously, I've grown and scaled with much more intention than with how I started out the company.
So you start out in data entry, and like, did people just start referring you, and you just started thinking, like, did you do that on the side and you reached out to people? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so we had one person. It was a colleague of my husband's that had his own business, and he was my first actual client. And then after that, I was doing some advertising on Twitter and Facebook, and not in terms of ads, but just posts, like putting things out there and hoping that somebody would see them, responding to things. And the business really grew mostly based off of referrals. One person would work with me and they would have a friend that would need help. And so it just kept growing. And then, like I said, as things progressed, then I actually got intentional about how I wanted the business to grow and what types of things I wanted to be doing.
Wow. So did you have a mentor in all this, or does your husband own his own business?
He does not. He is absolutely a, kind of brick and mortar cubicle kind of person. So as during the years, I've had many mentors, depending on what my need was. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to rebrand the company. And so at that time, I hired a branding mentor just to help me get through that process, try to come up with a new name, really focus on what the mission was of the company. I've had other mentors who I've used over the years for anything from, business structure to advertising to just general, where do we want to go? What are those unique gifts that I have that I really love and enjoy, and those are the things that I want to do. So I have definitely worked with a number of mentors over the year.
So you started, so there's a point where you started being more intentional in the business. Was that when you started doing the hiring for the mentors? Like, I'm sure like there was a lot of questions you had in terms of like, do I do this? How do just certain things work? Is that when you started really hiring those mentors?
Yeah, it really was. The first one definitely was the branding person, and that's when I rebranded everything. And then I pretty much gave everybody a heart attack after that. I fired all my clients, all of them. I just decided, you know what, I've rebranded the company. The clients I was working with at the time just weren't in line with where I wanted the company to go. If you ever want a really good way to give your spouse a heart attack, just fire all your clients in one day. Um, but immediately, like within a week, I had been telling people, this is where I want to take this business. And within a week, even some of the ex-clients were referring people to me who really were focused on that particular, industry or niche that I wanted to focus on. And so it was very scary to do it, but it absolutely was the right decision. And then really just working with people as needed, mentors as needed, through the life cycle of this business to take it where it is as of today.
So with the niche, was that when you started wanting to go into like hosting events?
No, that was really focusing on really working with speakers and authors and coaches and influencers. Most of my clientele had kind of started out that way just by accident. And so I really kind of focused on them, but focused on people that really were settled and had their business for a while, weren't necessarily starting out brand new at that time. And that's really where I started to focus on that. And then, of course, events are part of that, right? Every speaker, every coach, every influencer does events, whether it's a 1 hour webinar or a 1 day workshop or a 3 day conference. So we were using events as part of their marketing plan anyway. And really in the last year, I pivoted again about a year ago and decided, I love this piece. I always tell people you have to be a little bit crazy, like good crazy, but a little bit crazy to love events. They're very fast moving, very lots of moving parts. And that's when I really decided about a year ago that I wanted to take that and just niche down even tighter and really focus on that event piece. And so I made that transition about a year ago and was doing live events, virtual events, hybrid events. So it was just one more tightening up of the focus of the business.
Wow. That's really incredible because like personally, and I know a lot of people in my audience, they would love to connect with like higher level people, like authors and influencers, things like that. How did you go about reaching out to those people and get business with these people?
A lot of it was, so a lot of it was referral based. You work with one person and then somebody else hears about you. And a lot of it was really, networking with people. I love going to events. I rarely actually go to the sessions. Every once in a while, you'll find me in one if it's somebody that I really want to hear. But I really love networking online. I love networking in person at events. And right now we're getting a little bit more creative with that because of our current circumstances, but it really was those personal connections with people and asking people questions. With anything we do in business, it doesn't matter what you do in business, the more questions that we can ask people, it's an easy way for us to find out what their needs are and how we can best serve them.
Most definitely. So a big thing here is the relationship. So you made sure that you nurtured the relationships that are around you, and they were more than happy because they knew and trusted you. They were more than happy to send business your way, and it's kind of trickled on for there. So a big thing here is I believe events are very powerful. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great way to shortcut a lot of like of time. Now, a big thing here at these events is one thing I love about the events is you meet these incredible people, as you know, like as you're just mentioning. what's like your strategy in going? Do you have a strategy going in when you're like, I want to go in and meet people, or do I want you go and say, I want to meet one or two people that I can really help, or what does it look like for you?
For me, it's really focusing around how I can serve others. So, I may go to an event where maybe there's one person that I just really, really want to meet. And it could be because I want to work with them, or it could just be I'm starstruck with them and I really want to meet them. But really, when I'm networking with people and going to events, either online or in person, it's really me approaching it from a service attitude of how can I help this person. You sit down with people and you start asking questions, and inevitably you're going to hear something that they're stuck on. And I may not even be the right person with the solution, but I might know somebody else with the solution. And so if I can provide that as of a service to them, that's really what we're all here for, is to help others. And I'm a firm believer in that then comes back around. And those people remember you for your act of service, that when they do need help with something that you actually do, you're the first name that pops up into their mind. And so I think anytime that we can go into any kind of a situation with that attitude of service, it's going to absolutely help us grow our business, even if we're not intentionally trying to grow our business at that moment.
Most definitely. So you add value, you help them out in their life, and it's not necessarily trying to get something from this person. It's just like, hey, I like to meet this person. I want to help out as I can. And if something comes back from it, that's great. But your primary mode of thinking is, how can I best serve and help this person out? So let's say that we take somebody who may not have such a strong network, or maybe they don't have a lot of resources to provide. Like, what would you suggest? Like somebody who maybe is starting out in business and they really want to make a connection with somebody who is a little bit more ahead of them in business. Maybe they want to connect with someone who's making 6 figures in business, or even 7 figures. Like, what would be your approach to maybe giving value to that person to form a connection with them?
Yeah, I do a couple of different things in terms of outreach that I really get a good response back from. One of which is if I have a connection. So let's say you're connected to somebody that I really want to meet for whatever reason. A lot of times I'll reach out to you and say, I really want to meet Joe. I see that you're connected with Joe. These are the reasons that I want to meet with him. You know, would you be willing to make that introduction? So I will flat out ask for the help. It took me a really long time to learn that asking for help was okay. I'm a bit of a control freak. And so that was something that was really, really hard for me. The other thing that I will do is if I'm cold calling people, even just for the connection, for the meet, not necessarily to sell, a lot of times I'll actually just record a quick video. And a quick 1-2 minute video that I send to them, maybe via LinkedIn, or maybe if I do have access to their email or some other way socially, that I'll just say, hey Joe, we haven't had a chance to meet yet. My name is Lisa Schulteis. Here's a little bit about me. Here's what I really love about what you're doing, right? And I'll focus on something. It could be a book launch that they've just done, or a product launch that they've just done, or I just saw them, present on video. And so I'll comment on that, and with, honesty, right? Like with sincerity, not because I'm just trying to kiss their butt, but because I actually, was impressed by it. And so using that little 1 to 2 minute video where they can see my face and hear my personality and hear my words, that's really helped me to get some connections with people that I never thought that I'd ever actually be able to connect with.
Wow. So it takes a little bit of being bold in the way of, number one, because I feel that I also have challenge with the asking part. Like actually asking for a specific introduction. Like, well, how was that transition for you, where you went from not wanting to ask to you're like, you know what, I should start asking? And then when did it click? You're like, wait a second, people actually want to help out and are more than willing to help me out.
I still fight it every day. I tell people I'm an extroverted introvert. So for all of the introverts who are listening to this, I am right there with you. I love events, but I'd love to just be in the corner and watching it from a distance if I'm actually attending an event. So really, it's something I still struggle with every day. And I just have to force myself to do it. And a quick 1 or 2 minute video it's pretty easy to do. And there are days that I stumble through it and I say too many times and start my sentence with so, and all of those things that I self-criticize with. But the person who's receiving it, they're actually seeing your real personality, and that's amazing, right? They with our websites and with social media, we can type things that will give people an idea of who we are, but it's when they actually see us and hear us that it just helps. So you just have to kind of kick yourself and get over it and force yourself to do it. And it helps. And I still struggle with it, but it definitely helps all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember after I left that War Room event that back in November, I remember there was a couple people that I met through LinkedIn, or through there that I connected with on LinkedIn. I remember I had sent a video to several people, and I remember one person, I forgot who it was, but I remember they're like, "Wow," they were amazed. They're like, "No one's ever sent me a video." And I think it was someone introduced me to somebody, and I sent a video to introduce myself to that person, and it made such a huge difference in terms of the quality of the interaction that we had. Now, I've been thinking about this lately because I think Jesse Itzler, I think he writes 5 letters a day or something like that, and I'm starting to think like, okay, if I really want to grow my network and want to form more relationships, it really has to come down for it to be a habit where I'm constantly reaching out. Do you have some kind of system that you use to remind you, or is it top of mind? What does like the follow up and nurturing of the relationships look like for you?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a system, but I still personalize it. So I have, kind of templates that I will use for, if I'm doing reach out on LinkedIn, for example. I have a couple of email template or message templates that I use, that I will copy and paste in, and then I totally edit them. So it's kind of a starting point for me. I'm horrible with the blank page. I know a lot of people are horrible with the blank page. So I do have a couple of emails or message templates that I'll use, but I do definitely, personalize those based on our conversation that's happening. And you talk about growing the business, and one of the things that I did when COVID happened in March, I've always done a combination of live and virtual events, but obviously when COVID happened and everything shut down, right? The event industry shut down in a day, and it was catastrophic. And I knew that I needed to immediately let people know that, yes, I do events, but by the way, I do virtual events. And most people that I was associating with didn't know that piece about me. Um, so I was very intentional about it in LinkedIn, in March, and I was recording about 51-minute videos a day where
Wow.
I would go through, it's crazy, right? And I would go through my list and I would say, Greg, hey, just wanted to connect with you, hope you're doing okay during this crazy time that we're living in. We've never had to experience this before. Just wanted to connect with you real quick, let you know what I'm up to. I'm looking for introductions to people who are in, corporate world that might need to convert their in-person corporate internal events to virtual. So if you know anybody, let me know. And I was doing about 50 of those a day. I did it every day for 5 days. So, 250 of those went out. Um, and it was a lot of work, but it was a very intentional way to reach out to people. And I also said during that, and hey, if there is anything that I can do to support you and your business right now, please let me know, because we were all in crisis mode. So it's really just making those connections, again, being willing to ask. That was a huge thing for me to do, 250 asking questions and asking for connections in a week. But it's really just, making it intentional and not being afraid of what might happen. Somebody might not like my video. Well, the other 249 people probably did. So it's okay.
Mhm. Most definitely. So now we are now we're made the huge transition between your hope, like doing a lot of stuff with helping people out with their physical events. Now you've moved on to virtual. Let's say that we have some people who want to start throwing like virtual events, but they're like unsure of like, well, how would I do it in terms of like how do I make it to where it's like a really great experience to where it feels different than just like a normal Zoom call. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people we don't need another Zoom meeting, right? And nothing against Zoom. And Zoom's actually becoming kind of a noun right now, and or an adjective describing things, which, I'm sure that their CEO is loving in some cases and not loving in others. But really in terms of, events are a great way to grow your business, whether you're doing them in person or virtually. And so it's really just a matter of deciding what type of event is going to support the goal that you have. So, for example, if you're somebody that already does workshops, like a 1 day workshop, or maybe you're doing, if you're a brick and mortar and you're doing, yoga classes, right, where people are coming to a physical location, those can very easily be transformed into an online workshop, an online class. A lot of businesses have successfully done that. The big thing with virtual events is you have to be able to take that live experience and translate that to the digital world. So if you're doing something like a class or a workshop, doing that in this kind of a format where we're on Zoom or GoToMeeting or any of the other many video conferencing platforms that are out there, you absolutely can do that because you're getting that face time, you're getting that one-on-one time, or that even that one-to-many time. But then you want to actually add in any surprise little experiential elements that you can. So even with workshops, for example, I have a lot of people that have taken their 1 day workshop and they've converted it to a Zoom event, right? They're holding the workshop online. They've got the whiteboard behind them that they're writing on. But normally in a workshop setting, we would have lunch be delivered in for our 10 participants, for example. And so what a lot of times I'll recommend to people is if you're doing a workshop and people are paying you a few $100s for this workshop, then if instead of being able to bring lunch in because they're all with you, have lunch DoorDashed or Uber Eats or something to them so that you're all still having that experience together. You're just having it online, right? Or give them all gift certificates and tell them all to order lunch to be delivered at noon, and you're still online. And yes, it might be weird eating in front of the camera, but we all know, when we go to these networking events, we all sit around tables, we all eat together. It's how we actually connect over food. So doing some of those little surprise elements is really helpful in having that virtual event be a little bit more effective than you actually expect it to be. And then really it's just, what is your goal of the event? If it's to, upsell them to another product, maybe you're doing a 1 day workshop and you want to upsell them to a coaching package, for example, or maybe you're doing a one-off class, but you want to upsell them to a group of classes. Then it's really a matter of figuring out what's the best type of event for you. Is it a webinar? Is it a workshop? Is it a virtual summit? Um, you know, and then what software is going to support that to make sure that you're being able to provide that service. And that's everywhere from the webinar, which is little, all the way up to, we're doing 5 day virtual events. We have one that's running right now that's 4 weeks long. And it's a lot of work. So it just depends on how big that end goal is and what you need to support it. So it's no different than taking your customer life cycle and figuring it out for a live event than it is for a virtual event. You just have to make sure you have all of those pieces put together.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, a big thing is like the online events, it can be challenging, right? To at least hold like the attention and stuff like that. At least I've noticed in my experience, just from speaking my experience. But I want to know like what does that look like? Someone hosting like that 4 week event. Like what do they meet up every day, or do they assign homework? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so this particular one's a bit bigger than that. But even if you are doing something over multiple weeks, the advantage of that is it's breaking up the time, right? We're all hearing about the Zoom fatigue and online fatigue. And so it allows you to break up some of that time. So if you're going to have a 30-minute session or a 45-minute session, or even longer potentially, building in some breaks after that. If you're doing a bigger event where you've got a lot of people that are involved with it, both on the presentation side as well as the attending side, I always suggest, have a fun session in there, right? A fun session could be a happy hour with a bartender and they're teaching you how to make drinks. A fun session could be a 15-minute break where you've got a yoga instructor showing people how to do stretches to get them uncontorted from sitting in the office chair. Another fun session could be, hey, we're sending everybody a surprise. And you can do this at the small level too, right? You have a workshop of 5 people and you're sending everybody a surprise box ahead of time and everybody unboxes it at the same time. And, it could be something fun. It could be something serious. Whatever it is, it's just another experience that you can add in, just to put a break into it. And then just, even during the serious part of the sessions, making sure that those interactive pieces are in there, that people can raise their hand in the session or live chat questions or answer polls or all of those wonderful things that are already built into the software. The more we utilize that, the better. And then, if you want to have homework, that's great. If you want to have pre-work, that's great as well. I still try to add in some traditional event experiences with them. So if I'm hosting a workshop where I would normally be handing them a printed binder or a printed booklet, I will send that to them ahead of time with the workshop. And that way they still have that printed thing ahead of time. And it's a nice surprise that they've received as well. So just taking some of those live events and including them in there and breaking up the time.
Wow, that's actually very creative. And putting in that fun time or sending stuff, and having it. I thought actually War Room did that as well with the event that just had right now, which was really it was a pleasant surprise. Even Tony Robbins did it for his Unleash the Power Within event. Now, I know that you belong to several masterminds as well, and personally, I believe that like even Napoleon Hill talked about this in Think and Grow Rich. Like masterminds are a common theme he's seen amongst many successful people. When did masterminds first like enter your radar, and when you thought you're like, oh, I really should join this because I know it's going to take me to the next level?
Yeah, I've probably been a member of a mastermind of one sort of or another for probably the last 5 years. Um, Sometimes I'm just in one, sometimes I'm in three. It just kind of depends on what's going on with the business. But I'm a firm believer, and somebody said this to me years ago, and I don't know who it is, so I don't know who the originator of it is, but somebody was, smarter than me a few years ago said, never be the smartest person in the room. And I've heard that in a number of masterminds. Never be the smartest person in the room. I want to surround myself with people that know things better than I do. And there's a lot of things I'm really, really good at. There are a lot of things that I'm either not so great at or I just hate. I hate finances. I hate doing accounting. I hate doing taxes. I hate doing anything related to that. Things came up in March with, PPP and the different SBA loans. And for me, that's head spinning, right? Where I can be in a mastermind where there's somebody that's all they do and they love it. Which I don't understand how you can love that piece, but that's okay. But obviously, they're much smarter than me when it comes to that. Or they just enjoy it a lot more. Like I could figure it out if I wanted to take the time. So, but I don't. So masterminds have been really, really important for me to grow my business. And it also allows you, two of the things I love about masterminds is one, it allows you to take your mind out of the everyday functions of your business and focus somewhere else. So when you're in that mastermind, you're not, picking up the phone constantly and answering emails constantly and dealing with this project and that project. You're actually focused on, wow, I need to, focus on this piece to grow my business. And so masterminds really provide you that focus. Even if you don't need anybody else's input, it's a time to focus. And then the other thing that they provide you is they do provide you with that network of people where you can sit there and honestly say, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do in this scenario. And you can get that feedback from people who have, probably already walked through that part of your business. Maybe they experienced that 5 years ago, maybe they experienced it 5 months ago, but it gives you that ability to just look at other people and say, how would you handle this in a very safe environment where people aren't judging you and they're willing to give you that insight and that help. And masterminds really go back to that attitude of service. It's they're helping you by having people answer questions for you, but they also help you because you're able to provide that service to others, because you're going to have things that you can provide that are of value to other people as well. So I consider them crucial for business.
Absolutely. I am a big fan of masterminds. Yeah, because like everybody is there and like for a specific purpose, whether it's a business mastermind or fitness mastermind or whatever it is, like you all have a similar goal and passion towards something, and some people can help you out. Like they're more than happy. It's easier to make those connections in that group, and the biggest thing is like everybody is so excited and very very helpful towards each other, and I believe that it's a secret.
Mhm.
Now, um, when like did you go to an event and someone was like, oh, we have this mastermind? Like when did it first come to your mind? You're like, I want to I want to join to see what it's like. And then once you joined it, what was it like as far as like your life where you're like, wait a second, this is very powerful.
Yeah, my first mastermind was actually held by a friend of mine. So she approached me and said, listen, I've begun this mastermind. I think it'd be really helpful for you. You should come. And so of course I did it out of the, well, she's my friend. Of course I'm gonna, join it. But so for me, I went into it probably with very much the wrong attitude, right? I went into it with the, oh, I'll just do this to do her a favor and get enough butts in seats. Um, and my first experience with it was just, like just the brick wall that you just sat there and went, wait, why wasn't I doing this before? It was a smaller group. I think there were only 5 of us. And so we were able to hot seat during the 2 days, and everybody got hot seated, and man, they were brutal, like good brutal, but they were brutal. It was a really good wake up call for me, um, of things that I probably wasn't quite doing right in my business, and they were calling me out on it. And you don't get that. You don't get people who will be honest with you and say, that's just not a good idea. Or that's an amazing idea, or yeah, that's great, but you need to tweak it, right? So that was really my first experience. And then as I went to different events, I would see different, masterminds that were, at the event and would have a booth. And, really depending on what the focus of that group was, that would determine kind of whether or not I would participate and actually join them. But, they have just been such a crucial part of business that I wish I had actually taken part of in the first 5 years of my business. I think my business would have grown very differently, if I had been part of a mastermind at the beginning versus just kind of figuring it out on my own and making it up as I went. So I'm a huge advocate of masterminds, but finding the right one that fits your business or your need at the time. And it's okay. You will outgrow different mastermind groups, and that's perfectly okay. So once you join one, you don't have to stay there for the rest of your life. You know, you can move around to different ones as they meet your needs and as you're able to serve them as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. You say that because it's much like I see it as similar to even relationships. You know, some people you help and you grow and they made sense for you in that stage of your life, but sometimes you part directions and that's okay. And
Right.
that's a big thing. It's just thinking it's not like if you did like, at one point of your life it was okay for you to really spend a lot of time together, but at this point it just doesn't make sense. But we still care for each other very, very much so. And I one of the biggest thing that's made a huge difference for my life and many others is being around the right people and not hanging around people who don't share the same goals and similar values. And that's a very, very tough thing to do. Did you have anything like that where you had to like let go of people while you were embarking on this entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I have scaled my company up and then I've scaled it back a couple of times. Um, I have, you know, like I mentioned, I had the one day that I fired all the clients because it wasn't a good fit and I had outgrown them. And, you know, that seems like such a weird statement to make. And I actually struggled with that, you know, like, who am I to say that I've outgrown my clients? Like it seemed a little arrogant of me to even be considering it. But it's true. I mean, we have different phases of our business. We have, you know, different people that it's appropriate to be working with at different times. And you know, it's okay as a business owner. You know, that's one of the things that we have to decide. And it's okay as a business owner to say, you know, we're on the wrong path or we're on the right path, but not necessarily with the right people. And it's a hard decision as a business owner. Um, but you still have to put the business first. Like the people, you're still putting them first in terms of how you care for them, but you have to, in terms of decisions, put the business first to make sure that the business is going to continue to thrive. Because if the business isn't thriving, you can't help those people at all, no matter how much you care for them.
Absolutely. And I know that isn't an easy decision to make. And one thing about being, you know, an entrepreneur is you got to make those really challenging decisions. And it's like, yeah, and you have to take full responsibility and think, you know what, I'll deal with the consequences, but I feel like this is what I'm going to do. I think that's one of the beauties as far as being an entrepreneur as well is like you are. I think Joe Paulus said this. He said the best news about being an entrepreneur is that you're your own boss, but the worst thing about being an entrepreneur is that you're your own
You're
boss,
your own
right?
boss. Absolutely. Yeah, you
Uh,
know, and I tell people all the time, you know, I love being an entrepreneur. You know, I grew up, quote unquote, in the corporate world. Um, and I miss it a little bit. I miss the coworkers, right? I miss those interactions, and that's actually one of the things that the masterminds are really good for. But I don't think I could ever go back to the corporate space. I've had a couple of clients that said, you know, close your business. We want to hire you full time. Right. And I just, every single time I just say, no, I can't. Like, that's not who I am anymore. I love being my own boss. I love deciding that today I'm going to work and tomorrow I'm not. Um, but at the same time, in the last 11 years, I've taken one vacation where I actually turned off the computer. I hired somebody to run the business for me while I was gone. Um, and that's not a great admission, right? One vacation in 11 years. So you have to realize too, when you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot that gets put on you. You know, you're wearing all the hats, not just one. I get envious of my husband sometimes. I'm like, man, you get to work from 8 to 5 and then you close the computer and you're done. Like, how does that work? I don't understand. But I wouldn't give it up for anything. So you just have to realize when you're in this space that, you know, there's a lot of amazing things about it, but there's a lot of things that can really kind of break you down a little bit, and you've got to be sure to take care of you. in the space to make sure that, you can continue to thrive as well.
Absolutely. Now, with being, your own boss, it's like you have to be really disciplined as far as your own schedule. What does it look like for you to keep yourself like productive? Do you have certain things to do in the morning? Do you have a set routine that you create for yourself? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I will admit I work way too much. I'm one of those. But like this week, I'm juggling 3 virtual events right now. We're building out 3 different events. One goes live next week, 2 go live in 2 weeks. So for me, I try to really focus on one project at a time. I'll sit there and say, okay, for the next 2 hours, I'm only going to do company A. For the next, hour after that, I'm really going to try to focus on company B. And I catch myself, I'll go and check email, and, email sucks you in and pulls you into 50 different directions. But I really do try to kind of compartmentalize my day in terms of, which project I'm focusing on. And then also building in time to make sure that my company is actually one of my projects too. Entrepreneurs, we definitely have cobbler shoe issues. We do everything for everybody else and not anything for ourselves. So I have to physically put on my calendar when I want to block out time to record 50 LinkedIn videos or whatever it is that I'm currently doing to build my business. So that compartmentalizing is really, really important. I was just reading recently. I'm a huge Elon Musk fan in terms of all the things that he has done. Whether you like him as a person or not, just where he's taken Tesla, where he's taken SpaceX. I'm a total rocket geeky girl. I sit there and watch the launches every single time. And I was reading that, he's got he's got 3 big companies, right? He's got Tesla, Boring Company, and he has SpaceX. And how does he manage that? And he actually sections it out by days. So Monday is SpaceX, right? Tuesday is Tesla. Wednesday is Boring Company, or maybe Wednesday and Thursday is Boring because they've got something big going on. And it's that same compartmentalizing that really helps you focus. So it's really important to just kind of chunk out your days to focus on what you need to focus on.
Yeah, yeah, Elon. I remember when I listened to him on Rogan's podcast, and Rogan's like, "How do you have the time to do these things? Like, how do you do it?" And he's just like, just answered in the most long way. It's just like, just do it. Or I forgot what he had said, but
Right.
big fan of Elon as well. Now, with like you have these virtual events coming up, where do you see things going in terms of events and virtual events? I know no one really knows. There's a lot of uncertainty, but from your best guess, what would you say?
Yeah, so no question about it. Live events will come back, not as soon as we want them to, but they are going to come back. And so really where events are going is they're really going to be moving to a hybrid model. We were seeing hints of this before COVID. So for example, last September, we were doing a hybrid event. It was probably 75% virtual, 25% live. So all the attendees were virtual, but the presenters, we were doing a mix. And we've seen a hint with that with some of the big conferences where they were doing them live, but then they would be, tell you, oh, well, and for $199, you can buy the live stream. And the live stream was kind of an afterthought, right? Like we need to focus on putting on this big 30,000 person event. And oh yeah, there's a live stream. That's kind of where events were. And really where we're going to be moving to is we're going to be moving to true hybrid events where we have a live component that maybe you have 30,000 people at an event. But then you also have a concurrent virtual event where the virtual attendees and the live attendees can actually engage with each other during the event. So it's not going to just be the live stream. These, the virtual attendees are going to be watching the same presentation that the live attendees are watching live. So we'll have live with a live stream, but that engagement is going to continue in terms of having that engagement with the two groups. They've always been separated. And it's really going to be that integration. We're going to see that with exhibitors and sponsors as well. I'm already forewarning. I have a lot of clients who are exhibitors at events, and I'm already forewarning them, you have to double your sales force, because what's going to happen is we're going to have live booths on a trade show floor, but we're also going to have a virtual component to it, so that Greg, if you can't go to that event, then you can still go online and enter the booth, the virtual booth of that exhibitor, and interact with people that are on the sales floor, or interact with people live, with people that are maybe in Toronto. So we're really going to be seeing events move to more of a hybrid event type. And part of that's going to be because restrictions are going to be longer than we anticipated in terms of how many people can be at an event. But also, even once those restrictions are taken off, there's going to be companies have figured it out, right? Wow, my attendees, my employees can attend an event and I don't have to pay a hotel. I don't have to pay airfare. I don't have to pay meals. I don't have to pay any of this, right? And there's a lot of us that we can't wait for events to come back. Like, just put me in a conference room. I'm so excited. Like, let me walk that trade show floor. But there's a lot of people that it's just not their thing. And they're sitting there going, wow, I don't have to party until 2 a.m. in the morning to network with people. And I can actually just sleep in and attend this online. So I think we're really going to see that mixture and that hybrid really becoming, the powering force moving forward.
Wow, that is a very incredible insight that I never even thought of. That's really powerful. It makes sense, is specifically because, as you mentioned, there's some people who don't want to go, but they want to go, but maybe want to be more on the screen side, and then integrating that with that's a lot of different moving parts, as well as you said, there's a lot of different moving parts with the event. Let's look into the Facebook group. Let's see if anyone has any questions. In the meantime, do you have I always like to ask in terms of advice to somebody, like some people because I have a lot of people in my group who are starting out in business. Like, what mistakes would you say like you can help them avoid when it comes to having their own business and first starting out?
Yeah, so there's a couple. So one, obviously, don't be afraid to ask for help. We talked about that already. Two, it's okay if something doesn't work. Things that fail, quote unquote, fail, actually teach us. And that was a lesson that took me a really long time to learn. I actually literally have a plaque on my wall that says, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. So don't be afraid to fail. It's okay. If you're not sure if that product is going to launch, it's okay. Don't let that doubt keep you from launching it if you really think that this is something that's going to meet people's needs. Sometimes those product launches are going to work and they're going to be amazing, and sometimes they're going to flop. But it will teach you something, and that failure will actually help you grow. So don't let that doubt actually stymie you and hold you back. And then the third thing really is, think big. And we talked about how important masterminds are, and really input from other people. And there's a lot of people and a lot of companies that I've followed over the years that, you always hear it, right? If you follow this methodology, you will automatically get X, right? And for some people it works, and for some people it just doesn't. And sometimes you can do, you and I can do this exactly the same thing, and it might work for you and it might not work for me, because there's other things that come into play, personalities and things like that. So don't ever be afraid to trust your gut. I should have been doing events a long time ago and just focusing on doing events. I was terrified of really niching down that tight. But I knew that that's the piece that I loved. Like, I'm really good at doing marketing management. I'm really good at being an outsourced CMO, but I love events. And so don't be afraid to go with your gut and really just do what you love. Because the more you love it, the more passion that you get put into it and the more energy and that excitement, it starts to just kind of flourish on its own. Um, I'll never forget a very dear friend of mine. We were talking about events one day, and I was telling her what I really wanted to focus when I was making this transition. And she looked at me square in the face and she said, Lisa, I've known you for 10 years, and that's the most excited I've ever heard you talk about your business. And
Wow.
she's like, you have found your passion. So don't be afraid to listen to that gut and go with it.
Man, that's incredible. We have Rosa here. Rosa asks, what mastermind do you recommend the best?
Oh my gosh. Um, it depends is really my honest answer. I belong to a couple of different ones. So really, Rosa, look at, why are you looking for a mastermind, right? That's the first question that you should ask. Is it because you're looking for branding advice, for example? Is it because you're looking for general marketing to help grow your business? Um, you know, we've mentioned War Room. War Room is a wonderful mastermind for CEOs that are doing high figure volume in terms of income. So it really is going to depend on why you're looking for the mastermind. What do you need from it? And don't be afraid to ask them those questions. So when you're looking into a mastermind, ask them those questions like, what type of people are involved in your mastermind? What level are they at in their business? What types of, topics do you talk about at your mastermind events? And that will help you really hone in on finding the right mastermind for your particular business. There are so many out there that are good. I don't know that I could pick one and say, yep, that's the one, because I use different masterminds for different things.
Mm, absolutely. Depending on where you're at and what you're looking for, as far as like again, niching down, right, to like the specific things you're looking for. Lisa, I really appreciate you taking time here today and helping out, my audience. And I know you're a really busy person, got a lot going on. Where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so two places. One, you can find me on LinkedIn. My first name is Lisa. My last name is harder to spell. It's Schulteis. It's Schulteis. So you can always find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at my website, which is ElectraLime. So lime like the fruit. So electralime.com. You can always connect with me there. If anybody ever has a question about, how do I host a virtual event, or what kind of virtual event should I pick, or wait, what's the best software for this kind of virtual event? Just ping me online. I'm always happy to answer those types of questions, any way that I can help. Feel free to ask those questions.
You're an incredible person. Again, thank you so much, Lisa. See you, everybody, and we'll be back soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody.